So Nancy Overman, you may all know, is a WATESOL regular. Many really good presentations I've attended over the last few years. Always come away with something useful, something interesting to try out in the classroom. So Nancy, you're at the English Language Center's Intensive English Program at Georgetown, is that correct?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And are you ready to rock and roll?
Yep, I'm ready.
Okay, then welcome, Nancy. Please tell us all about fostering autonomy, analytical skills, and agency.
Okay, so I'm sharing something that I kind of put together. I'm sure it's not a totally original idea, but something that I've put together in the last few years. I tend to use it with my more advanced classes and with my business English classes, but it could work with intermediate levels as well. And so I will figure out how to advance my slides. So I'm sure everybody knows about reading circles. So what we're going to talk about today is different ways of putting together the reading circles, but also how to then turn the reading circle into a writing circle. So the benefits of reading circles, a lot of this, this page gets at the title. It allows for more autonomy because students can choose the genre that they want to study, choose the topics, the length, the level of formality that they want. There is research that shows that one of the best ways to improve students' reading skills is to let them read whatever they want. You know, if you put two groups, the group that is getting reading skills from a teacher like you or I, you or me, and another group that just reads what they like, the group that reads what they like can improve just as much as the group that is receiving the direct reading skills practice. So this allows them to choose what they're interested in. And so they have more motivation while they're reading because it's a topic that they're interested in. And I definitely see a sense of ownership and a feeling of expertise when they report to the rest of the group about what they read, because suddenly they are the ones in charge and they're the ones with knowledge, and they take great pride in that. It's an alternative to the textbook reading options. So a lot of my textbooks have science or psychology or geology, earthquakes, natural disasters, animal communication. But this is an alternative where students can choose a topic that interests them perhaps more or in addition to the topics in the textbooks. It encourages close reading because they know that info will have to be summarized. They're going to need to read their article and then share it with the other people in their group. It's also an opportunity to practice their note taking, and I'm going to share with you a universal worksheet that I use so that the students are reading different things, but they are all filling out the same worksheet about what they're reading. And then they use that not only to practice note taking from reading, but also they start to practice a little bit of writing, and they are they are creating a reference that they're able to use when they summarize to the rest of the group, so that they are not reading the actual article. They're not even looking at the original article when they report to the rest of the group. And of course, we hope that it will hone their critical thinking students. The students have to make decisions on what they're going to record and what they're going to report to the rest. And it also was going to hone their critical thinking skills when we get to the writing part. So, by the way, if anybody has a question along the way, can we say that you could put it in the chat and Louise would interrupt me?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Happy
that
to
works
interrupt.
for me. Or if I see that if the chat pops up, I can try to answer. I don't mind interruptions. The added benefit when the students write literature reviews using the sources from their reading circle, then they are beginning the research and research reporting process. And I'm going to talk more about that. So here's an overview from the teacher's point of view. In small groups, each student will find an article on the topic that the group has chosen, and they do that outside of class. Or you might give them some time during class to choose the topic, but they will find their articles outside of class. Outside of class, the students complete the universal note-taking worksheet. In class, the students summarize their notes in the small group and report on their individual articles to their reading circle. By the way, if you want to take more time, you can then reorganize the circles so that you have new groups with 3 different topics, and people can summarize again their article to a different group. So with the original reading circle, with the group that's chosen the same topic, students would identify a common theme or a general theme that all the articles can support. And this becomes the group thesis statement. And the thesis statement is what they're going to use when they do their literature review. The general claim could be something that all the articles agree upon, but the thesis statement could also be that there's a wide variety of opinions, that there is no agreement among experts. So that's another option. Students would then create and share a bibliography of their sources with each other. For example, show them how to use easybib.com because easybib.com allows them to make MLA-style bibliography references for free. They charge for APA, but they don't charge for MLA. So we go with MLA. I prefer MLA because I think it looks cleaner on the page. It's easier for the students to remember. Then, outside of class, each student writes a literature review using the thesis that they developed together and the articles that were identified by the group members. So here's another point that is not reflected in my PowerPoint slides, but I definitely want to steer the students away from having one body paragraph on each article. If necessary, they might need to do that, but what I'd rather see them do is repackage the material so that they would have a body paragraph that is then supported by at least 2 of the articles from their reading circle. We can talk more about that if there's time at the end. So in terms of forming groups for the reading circles, there are a couple of options. You can just have the students who are sitting near each other form a group and then have them discuss together what topic should we focus on as a group, something that they all have an interest in. And it can be a very broad topic. Option number 2, I could come up with 3 or 4 topics I want them to focus on and then have the students join one of those groups. So you could do that on the board. I did that last week. You can also use doodle.com, which is normally a tool that is used to find like which is the best day and time for all of us to meet. That's how they market themselves. But if you choose the free text option, you can have students choose, and let me show you on the next slide what I'm talking about. So if the reading circle topics were politics, science, and culture, that was my free text. I wrote politics, science, and culture, and I sent a link to the students, and the students, I set it in the settings so the students can only choose one of them. And so you can see that Doodle.com has already recorded 3 people who want to be in the science group. And that means anybody else who comes in after these 6 will realize that they have to choose politics or they have to choose culture, because I also set it for a maximum of 3 for each option. And that's a nice way to do it. You don't have to waste class time figuring out who's going to do what. So let's talk a little bit about this universal worksheet. It's a worksheet, and I'll show it to you in a minute. And also I will share a copy of it with anybody who wants it. And if you email me, I will send you a copy of it. So it tells students that they need to record the bibliographic information in the article that they've chosen. They need to identify the main idea. And I often do that by telling the students to try to find 1 or 2 sentences in the article that are the thesis statement. If not, they can write it in their own words. It asks them to create some while reading questions using the 5 W's. So who is the story about, what happened, when and where did it happen, why and how, or they can do it after the fact. They have to answer those questions, of course. They need to choose an appropriate note-taking technique, and then they take notes. Sometimes I have had students misunderstand. Actually, it happens, it's mystifying to me, but it happens fairly frequently that I'll tell the students, choose one of these note-taking techniques and take notes, and then say, I choose timeline, or I choose pros and cons, but then they don't actually take notes. So I've tried to emphasize that on the worksheet, that you have to choose the appropriate technique that would match your article, but also then take the notes. They often skip that part. I also, if it's a news story, I often ask them to identify what was the problem and what was the solution. Maybe there is no solution. Try to identify it. Or if there is no problem solution, perhaps it's a human interest story, in which case I'll have them just write a few sentences on why was this a human interest story? What is interesting about the story? I also ask them to express important relationships from the article using some formal sentence connectors. So this is one way to confirm that they understand the relationships between the facts and ideas in the story. And it's also getting them started on writing in a more academic style. I see that there's one chat. Okay, I will remember to upload later. And maybe Louise will help me with that. So let me go to the actual worksheet. I'm going to stop this.
Nancy, it was your audio is kind of going in and out a bit, and I was just kind of checking with Christina whether it was just my terrible internet connection or whether it was kind of a bit more universal.
Let me check something. I don't know why. I'm sorry. Sometimes if it share sound, maybe that will help.
It's fine at the moment. I think maybe when you're sitting
while
just
I
a
was
little
sharing.
bit forward, yeah, it could be that as well. Yeah.
On the share screen, I have just clicked share sound. So, but that's usually what's used for audio.
For audio, yeah.
So I don't know. Let me see. Well, anyway, is it better now? Can you now
yeah, say something.
Saying something now. Is it better now? This is the universal worksheet.
It's kind of going in and out again. Yeah.
This is a new computer that Georgetown just gave me, and it's only the first time that I've used it. My old computer is at the office, unfortunately.
Okay.
I'm sorry about that.
We can mostly hear.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think when you're, it seems to be when you're a little bit closer to the screen, it seems to be a bit stronger and more consistent. Yeah.
Hey, let me see if I can do something about my volume is up at 100. It was at 87, and I don't know if that will help. So this is what the reading circle report looks like. The students put their name and the group topic that they've chosen, and then together they choose a group topic and they write it above. Sorry, my little arrow got moved. And then individually, they choose a specific article on that topic. Now I had them using Newsella. So Newsella gives the same article at more than one level. So I have them tell me what's the title at the max level, and also what was the title at the other level. They could read the article at different levels. And often there's a different headline at those two levels. I had them in groups, so with a teacher. So they could also take the 4-point quiz. If you don't have if you're not registered as a teacher with a class code, then this quiz score doesn't show up. It's a really nice thing to have. It's 4 different questions. And it's 4 different questions at each level. And they're very good questions. Then you can have the students identify what was the problem and what was the solution, or if it's a human interest story, what elements make it interesting to readers. Now, because this is an electronic version, I didn't leave a lot of white space. I've squished everything onto one page for you, but the students, of course, can expand here and put more information in answer to each of these questions if they want to. How's the sound? Is it still the same?
You know, it's kind of más o menos.
Huh, okay. Individually, then the students would take the notes in the main article and they would choose one of these organizing strategies that I'm suggesting. They could do the 5 W's and how. They could, well, got problem and solution up here, a timeline, advantages and disadvantages, or supporters say, opponents say, if it's something controversial. They put their notes here. And then for connecting ideas, you could have them write 3 sentences. Sometimes I do more. So I might do a sentence with however, and another sentence with but, or one sentence with therefore, and another sentence with because, or another sentence with because of. A sentence with nevertheless, you could also add although or despite. if you want to expand. So they're not looking for sentences that use these words. They're looking for relationships in the article that they could then paraphrase with these relationships. This is part of a 3-page document that I will share with all of you. Page 1 is what you would give the students, or what I give the students when they get to the writing part. So today you'll choose a topic, you'll collect data, you'll read your article and take notes, and you'll make copies of your article. And then in class, you'll explain the content using your notes, share copies of your article, you'll listen to your partners when they explain theirs, you'll receive copies of their articles, and then with your reading circle partners, you will identify similarities, differences, common themes, or conclusions that you can draw from all or most of the sources, and from that, form a thesis statement. So this is a kind of literature review. It doesn't have to be a thesis statement with a claim or an opinion. It could just be a report on what the literature shows on this topic. So I give them examples, right? A common problem among blank these days is, right? Or there's a wide variety of opinions regarding the topic that they've chosen. Most people will find just a few others. I have a few examples I can share with you. So Karen, you said it might be that your mic is turned up really high. Do you think that's a problem then? My mic was on 87 when it was a problem, and I moved it to 100, but maybe I go back down, according to Karen Murph.
It seems to be kind of consistently inconsistent. So let's just.
Okay, I know that happens when video sharing is turned on, but
yeah, it definitely seems when the screen is off, it does seem better. Yeah, which is unfortunate.
I have a possible suggestion. I'm sharing my screen, but Louise, you were sharing your screen before, right?
No, it was Christina, actually.
Or Christina was sharing a screen. If your screen has those little boxes checked at the bottom, you're not sharing anything, so I don't think that would be the problem. I really don't know. I'm sorry about this.
It's okay. I mean, we're still able to follow you. It's just not brilliant, but it's good. It's okay. Yeah, okay. Everyone's kind of saying, yeah, we're following.
All right. Okay. I'm going to go back to the presentation. Sorry. So we formed groups, the doodle, the universal worksheet. Here's the sample. So one of the things I wanted to point out is that this process of finding the articles first and then creating a thesis statement is one way that you can mimic the research process for the students. Now, of course, the ideal way is the long way when you do research. First, you'd formulate a research question. Then you would find sources that will answer your question. Then you formulate a thesis and you write the research paper. But there is an alternative. And I often tell my students this, and this reading circle turning into writing circle process is the alternative. You would gather your sources first and then settle on a thesis that will draw on all those sources to make a cohesive written report. The advantages of that are that you can spend a lot less time researching. Now, perhaps it's less satisfying, and it's less an example of true research, but it certainly is going to be a time saver because you're going to be able to formulate a manageable thesis that can be supported by available sources. So even though a lot of books will talk about that ideal method, you formulate your research question and then you go and find the sources. A lot of my students aren't really ready to do that yet. If they find the sources first, they can develop a research question that those sources will answer. It's certainly a way to begin the research in an ESL classroom. so that they at least understand the basics of how it works and how to do the citations, for example. Here's a sample student introduction. One of the things I've taught my students is to open with a hook. So this student opened with a hook, right? Open a bank account in 5 clicks. We will offer you 80 euros. This advertisement on a French television blew me away. I wondered, why would a bank offer money to their customers while other banks were literally robbing them? Then I took my phone and Googled Hello Bank. Students can see, this is a good example of a little anecdote. Of course, it's very informal, and I might students don't use blow me away in an academic paper, but so this is not a perfect student paper, but it does have the elements that I'm looking for. After I discovered that it is a neobank, especially a fintech, and she explains what those are later in the paper, I understood that fintechs are revolutionizing the banking industry. However, many economic and financial experts diverge in the prediction of the future of neobanking. This is the thesis statement. I made it bold. You can see the students wrote about neobanking. This was a student from Algeria. He suggested the topic. The other students were interested, so they all wrote about neobanking. And I learned something about neobanking. The second sample student introduction is obviously about global warming. He started with a more boring hook, right? A definition. Global warming refers to continuous in heating of the climate system of the Earth, which occurs over a long period of. But he included the LA citation. So, well, actually, this is APA. Sorry. This phenomenon has been progressing since the pre-industrial era. This is mostly caused by activities related to humans. These activities include the burning of fossil fuels such as oil and coal. You can see there's a punctuation error there, so I haven't fixed everything in this student paper. This leads to an increase in greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. The gases that possess a heat trapping effect, for example. These greenhouse gases include this, not forgetting this. These and other studies show that these gases have many negative effects to the environment and also to human populations. You can see this statement doesn't have perfect grammar, but it does incorporate readings that the students did about greenhouse effects. You can also sorry, let me go back to I'm going to stop the share for just a second so that I can reshare the other page. I think I closed it. Let me double check. The overview for teachers might be closed. No, here it is. Okay. So nope, don't know where it went. I'm not going to worry about it. But I had some notes on making a rubric for evaluating the student work. And it's gone. So I'm going to go on to a different rubric, which is evaluating not the student writing, but the work that the students do in a group. And I'm really sorry to say that I don't know who created this. It's a self and peer assessment form, and if anybody recognizes this, I would love to know who made it. I might have gotten it from a WATESOL presentation, but it's a very nice assessment form that I could share with you on how the groups work together during the reading circle time. So they score each other on better than most of the group, about average for the group, not as good, or no help at all. And then page 2 has the rater's name and the assessment of, and then they rate and add comments on group participation, time management, adaptability. Of course, this would perhaps be more useful for a longer project, but the reading circle could have several meetings. Skills, contribution, and it does say here what is adopted from. It's possible that this is from one of my colleagues, and I'm going to ask them next week if any of them recognize it. But this is another rubric that you could use for evaluating the student work. Let me check one more time. I did have some notes. My notes were allowing you to turn some of this into a rubric. But you can see from the PowerPoint slide what the students would do. And you could evaluate students on, did they complete the universal worksheet and how well? How did they summarize and report? Did they identify a common theme? Did they create and share the bibliography? And then you could separately evaluate the literature review. So I've shown you example 1 and sample 2. I've shown you the peer assessment of the group work. And if you would like a copy of the instructions that I give the students and the universal note-taking worksheet, they are all in one worksheet. I'm going to stop sharing so that maybe my voice will be a little clearer. I'm happy to share that with you. But what I'd rather have you do would be a lot easier for me if you email me. I'll put my email again in the chat so that because I'm not sharing the PowerPoint anymore. So it's just Nancy Overman georgetown.edu, and you can email me for the handout example. Is there anybody with a question? We have plenty of time for questions. And is the audio better now?
Yeah, it is a little bit. Thank you. I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say that that using the Doodle poll for topics is a really good idea, because that whole kind of, you can only have 3 people choose one topic, and then invariably 5 people still try to choose the topic. But if you're doing it in Doodle, can't.
Right, there's no negotiating to be done, right?
So that's really good. Right, yeah.
And I also use Doodle for students to sign up for when they want to meet with me individually and for other purposes. It's free. There is a paid version, but you don't need to use the paid version.
Right. Oh. Excuse me.
This is the last presentation of the day. So I know I'm
Nancy, I mean, I really agree with you that allowing students to choose what to read, what they want to read is definitely something that gives them that sort of ownership and control over, what they are interested in. I teach a course, it's called Complex Problems for freshman students and their domestic students. And for the first 2 weeks, I assign the texts. So it's, this is what you get and you can't pick or choose. This is it, because I just want them to get it, because we're not focusing on selecting information. We're focusing on taking notes and whatever. Yeah. But on week 3, it's okay. I have 7 texts for you, or 8, and I want you to tell me which one you want to work on. Essentially, they will be selected by someone, but it's their choice, because one is going to be a journal article, there's a media article, there's a keynote speech, there's a TED Talk, there's a documentary. So there's some sort of variety. And it is very interesting to listen to students, because some will tell you that they do not want to watch a TED Talk and take notes because it's very challenging. It's so many skills that they have to use at once that it's just, overwhelming. But then, there will be students, and I was so surprised, telling me that Well, I want to read journal articles because, you know, it's college. Oh, then there you go. Here's your journal article.
Yeah.
And so it's just interesting. And then it's normally after midterm when they will go ahead and start selecting sources, because by then they understand that we want a diversity when it comes to sources. We want a variety of viewpoints and perspectives.
Right.
And so they can, you know, we can have that conversation. But they actually
and
do
freshmen need to do that.
note taking.
Yeah. And freshmen definitely need to know how to do that if they're already in college. Yeah.
Right. And I do the same thing with my international students in the writing courses.
Yeah.
And they do the reading, they do the note taking, they actually, because it's, you know, it was their choice.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I do something, I also teach freshmen. I teach international freshmen at Georgetown in the freshman comp class. And we go from a survey. So they're using sources, but it's a source they've created because it's their own survey. And then I give them sources for the next one that includes a radio podcast. And then the third one, what they're doing now, I think there's 7 sources, but they have to choose at least 3. And that one's about multitasking. That one is all of the articles are about why you can't multitask. Of course, the students don't like to hear that. And I always tell them, if you want, you can go find other sources that support the idea of multitasking, but the truth is they can't, because the research just isn't there. Right? And then, yeah, when we get to the end of the semester, they write an op-ed piece that's, you know, totally on their own. So kind of like you, we're moving to more and more independence.
One of the things that I've done teaching reading, writing, grammar in the highest level class is a semester-long annotated bibliography that the students can do on any topic they like, as long as they can find kind of, you know, reasonably academic sources to include.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, because some of them start off go, oh, I want to do like basketball or something. It's like, okay, well, crack on. And we have a session with the university librarian who's kind of showing them how to use the kind of search tools and things like that at the university. And if they cannot find, you know, sensible anything not ESPN with the librarian, then it's okay, well, then you need to rethink your topic, you know. But I really welcome giving students the choice to do something that they're interested in, because they put a lot more effort into that than any topic that I'm going to pick for them.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you have them put the whole annotated bibliography together at the end?
Yeah, and so they get they're kind of submitting entries throughout the semester. They're getting feedback, and at the end they're supposed to kind of put their revised kind of
in alphabetical order, right?
In order, yeah, with a bibliography, with an introduction, with a reflection on the process.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they don't write a research paper, but they write about the process.
Yes. Yeah, because it's something that they will end up doing in English 101 when they kind of go into that class. It's like, okay. But I warn them that when they're in English 101, it's like 3 times more articles or whatever that they need to include, and they get 2 weeks to do it. You know, you've had a whole semester and you've only had to include 6 pieces, you know. So this is practice. Make the most of it.
Right.
Does anyone else have any kind of assignments like that give the students a lot more freedom?
Are you able to hear me? These are dying.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm sorry, this is an inconvenient time to have a question. Can you say something? I don't know if I can hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. These were like dying and I was like, no, wrong timing. Now I have to switch audio. So I was thinking how to do this. I teach high school. So I have a mix in my class, and I'm kind of tying this into what I started thinking about in the first session, which was how to bring gifted and talented methods into ESL instruction, and a lot of it was directed toward choice, content, process, and the product, like building in a lot of choice. And there was a lot of talk about kind of like project-based learning. And I'm seeing a similar thing here with group research topics. I'm almost wondering if I had students pick topics and then form small groups. I have a small class, so it would be like 4 groups of 3. My class is not large. I'm just thinking about what kind of presentation. I'm almost wondering if I could structure it like a panel discussion, where if I had 4 topics and then those 3 students each bringing in 1 text, so they're informed on their topic, and then just to create more of an opportunity for speaking and interaction and like authentic stuff. If like I could have their other classmates kind of like provide them with questions to help drive further research, kind of like panel style.
Have you ever used procon.org?
No, I haven't heard of it.
It's a great website where you can look up anything like vegetarianism or nuclear weapons or whether homework should be given or not. And it will show you the pro arguments and the con arguments.
Yes,
So
yes.
You could have students use that as a source. And then procon.org has its own bibliography references. So students could then branch out to other documents from there.
Yes, yes. Now that you say, when you said pro-con, I didn't understand, but when I saw it in my head, I was like, I know that website. Yeah, pro-con might be a little advanced for us. We're around 5th, 6th, 7th grade reading level. So is pro-con very
you could try it with some of the simplest choices.
Okay.
Some of them are much more complex than others.
Okay. Okay. Otherwise, I might have to rely on like News ELA or Common Lit or other. Yeah,
that could be right. And sometimes there's some topics that kind of naturally break down into, for example, greenhouse effect, right? You could have one person focus on causes, another person focus on social effects, another person on health effects, and another person on economic effects. And now you have a panel of 4 people.
I would have to let them choose those topics because that would, I think, I mean, they might choose that topic, but that I would have to make sure that they are starting where they are and not giving them something that they know 0 about. Yeah. Which allowing them to choose their topics would kind of ensure that, because with an advanced topic like greenhouse gases, they don't know anything. That was just an example, they don't know anything yet.
Right. And then you know, you as a teacher have to be ready to, if they're choosing the topic, you have to be ready to go with the flow and help them on the spot with, okay, how could you divide this topic into a panel?
Right.
Which is fine.
Yeah, I was just brainstorming ways to, you know, give my idea more structure, basically.
And you could also turn it into some kind of poster or poster presentation.
Poster presentations are good. Any other questions for Nancy or comments? No.
My one comment is that, you know, reading circles are always fun because students initially just think that they're going to read, but then they realize, oh, we can talk about something. I can actually have complete thoughts about a certain topic. And then the fact that, oh, now I have something to write about. In fact, you know, there's so much to write about it now that So
Mhm.
they can see how skills are related to each other. And it's really nice to see that discovery when they have that moment, like, oh, okay, I can actually use this. Because I think that sometimes when they just start learning the language, preparing for IELTS or TOEFL or something, they think that reading means reading comprehension. I'm going to do the multiple choice, this means that, and here's a word missing, and I'll just add on. And I think once we start doing exercises like what you described, Nancy, that's when they realize that there's so much more about, to reading, not just the multiple choice reading comprehension tests.
Yeah. And of course, you could also do reading circles with fiction. This is the book that I've used. Refugee is a great resource. It's a $5 book from Scholastic. And it's about different refugee stories from different time periods in the 20th century. So there's a Cuban refugee, I think, and there's a World War II refugee and a Syrian refugee. And I've had students work in small groups and write about those chapters as well. Well, if there aren't more questions, I'll go check my email so that I can respond by sending out the handout.
Thank you very much, Nancy. See you next year.
Thank you for your good questions and sharing your ideas too.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Bye.
Okay, Christina, I will save the chat right now.